We're taking your lake house for the summer. This single text appeared on my screen early one Tuesday. It came from my sister Skylar in the group chat we share. My hot coffee cooled instantly as the replies piled up. Hearts and likes flooded the chat. Relatives were celebrating her announcement as if they had won something. No one bothered to ask me first. Their entitlement was clear, disguised as simple assumption. I stared blankly at the glass, keeping my expression neutral, my pulse slow. They must have expected my usual silence. That morning, however, something changed deeply within me. I smiled slightly, putting down my mug. I muttered, "Fine, we'll play this game." Hi, this is Hot Revenge, the channel with real life and unique stories. My name is Ariel Hayes, and I am 34. A year ago, people knew me as the quiet one. For most of my adult life, I avoided confrontation and worked hard to maintain harmony. I was the reliable child who never made trouble. I hold a senior data analyst position at a major Boston bank. My job requires logic and absolute focus. My city apartment is neat, minimal, and fully organized. Every file and cabinet is perfectly ordered. When the noise of Boston became too much, I drove 3 hours north to my place in the Lake Winnipesaukee region of New Hampshire. I purchased this property 6 years ago, entirely on my own, after a career advancement that went unacknowledged by my family. The cabin is white with blue trim. It faces calm water and tall pine trees that move steadily in the breeze. The scent of cedar and rain hangs in the air there. Sometimes the morning mist is so heavy it feels like the whole world disappears. At the lake, I finally find room to breathe. There are no demands, no deadlines, and no family obligations, only silence. My mother, father, sister Skylar, and her husband Dean live 6 hours away in the Philadelphia suburbs. Skylar is 31. She is married, loud, impulsive, and generally dominates every space she enters. She was always the favorite growing up. Mother often explained Skylar's behavior by saying, "She's a free spirit, honey. You're the practical one." Practical was her kind way of calling me insignificant. Father rarely interfered. He wasn't cruel, but he chose not to engage. He confused avoiding arguments with fostering affection. As children, Skylar received the brand new bicycle while I repaired mine repeatedly with tape. If she caused damage, I was blamed for leaving the object accessible. I gave up fighting around age 15. Disappearing was simply easier than confrontation. Once I earned a decent salary, I began financially assisting them, repairing a broken washer, helping with a home deposit, or covering the cost when Skylar's car was repossessed. This was quiet aid, what they called support, and they never offered repayment. Giving them a spare key to the lake house seemed fine after I bought it. I envisioned pleasant family weekends and mother enjoying the waterfront barbecues. They used the place sometimes, mostly Skylar and Dean. I actually enjoyed being seen as the competent person who could facilitate things. However, my kindness gradually became a firm expectation. The last time I was home, for Skylar's birthday in April, the familiar routine played out. I brought a costly skincare package she once mentioned. Skylar hugged me, shrieking with delight, but immediately launched into news of her own promotion, their kitchen renovation, and Dean's vehicle upgrade. My parents beamed, focused entirely on her every word. When Mother finally looked at me and asked, "How is work going, dear?" I prepared to answer, but Skylar interrupted instantly. "You should see the size of my new office. It's huge," she exclaimed. Everyone chuckled. I kept smiling quietly, pretending it didn't bother me. Yet a deep resentment was growing. It wasn't jealousy, it was anger at how easily they chose to ignore me. While helping clear dinner dishes that night, Skylar asked me plainly, "So, what are you doing with the place in New Hampshire this summer?" "The usual schedule," I replied. "Some private time, maybe host a few friends, potentially lease it out." She tipped her head and gave me a bright, careless grin. "That's great," she said. Her specific tone caused instant suspicion. Mother and father shared a quick glance that I failed to register at the time. I drove back to Boston the following morning, the cold air rushing through the open windows. I tried to dismiss how alienated I had felt during dinner. As the city buildings came into view, one idea repeated in my mind. Perhaps I existed solely to be their reliable resource, the person they could take from without permission. The text arrived 2 weeks later. That one sentence in the family chat immediately escalated the situation. I was at my desk on a Thursday morning, focused on finishing a financial report. The message came through while I was deep into a spreadsheet at my office. "We're taking your lake house for the summer," my sister wrote in our group chat, adding an exclamation mark and a sunshine emoji. I froze. The screen lit up like a cascade of fireworks. Mother was the first to react, sending a heart. Father followed with a thumbs up. Then Aunt Carol chimed in. "Oh, how delightful," Uncle Dave added. "Can't wait to go fishing again." Cousins soon piled on with smiling faces and detailed plans for weekend visits. In under 2 minutes, my entire extended family had scheduled their vacation at my house. No one requested permission. No one even acknowledged my ownership. Typed my response. "Actually, I already have plans to stay there this June. Please check with me before making any arrangements." The reply from my sister was immediate. "Don't be selfish, it's just family." Mother then wrote, "Everyone just ignore that message. She'll calm down." A torrent of texts followed, lecturing me about the importance of family sharing, how much I had changed, and suggesting I needed to relax. I stared at the flood of notifications until the words started to blur. I wasn't angry yet, I was simply numb. They always equated my silence with consent. Perhaps they were right once. But that morning, a deep stillness settled inside me. Liam, my boyfriend, called during my lunch break. "Are you all right?" he asked. I described the entire situation, the group text, the blatant sense of entitlement, and the casual disregard. He listened patiently, never interrupting, as he always does. "So, what exactly are you planning to do?" he finally asked. For the first time, I knew the answer. "I think I'm going to let them find out who I really am." That night, I reviewed old text conversations, years of small favors, quick money transfers, and gentle thanks that meant nothing. Every "could you help us just this once?" And "you're the best" felt hollow now. I understood it wasn't gratitude. It was an assumption of ownership masked as affection. By midnight, I was packing my apartment in the dark, my phone glowing. Their latest text flashed at the top. "You are being ridiculous." The words felt hot behind my eyes. I thought about the lake house, the welcoming porch lights, the scent of pine, the quiet mornings I had built for myself. Then I imagined them stomping through it all, treating it as if it belonged to them. Sleep was impossible. Around 2 a.m., I opened my computer and began searching for local home security installation services. This wasn't revenge driven by fury. It was clear, cold logic. For the first time, I wasn't trying to keep the peace. I was defining a boundary. When dawn broke, I brewed coffee, looked out at the cityscape, and whispered, "Let's begin." They believed I would back down. They expected me to simply overlook it. They had no idea that my silence was about to become a powerful tool. I requested 2 personal days off work and drove to the lake before the sun was fully up. The roads were empty, with mist winding over the asphalt like ghosts. When the trees opened up to reveal the water, the tension in my chest finally eased for the first time in weeks. That property had always been my safe haven. Now, it would become my statement. I started with the keys. A local locksmith named Mateo arrived before noon. He was initially cheerful and talkative, but stopped once he saw my expression. "Family issues?" he asked softly. "Something like that," I replied. He didn't inquire further. By the time he packed up, every entrance and window had brand new locks, and I held the only set of keys. Next came the security system. 2 technicians from a regional company installed motion-activated cameras covering the driveway, porch, and dock. I watched them work efficiently, drilling, wiring, and connecting the sensors. When they handed me the control application, a strange, solid feeling of control washed over me. That evening, I sat on the porch steps with a notebook and detailed every financial contribution I had made. The washing machine, car insurance premiums, medical expenses. Each item listed confirmed how they had trained me to serve their needs. At the end of the page, I wrote one decisive sentence. "This stops now." Before departing, I did a final walkthrough of the house. The kitchen still carried faint smells of pine cleaner and coffee. In the main room, light streamed through the wide glass doors, reflecting off the lake. I envisioned my sister throwing those doors open like she owned the place. My parents laughing. Everyone congratulating themselves on securing yet another family vacation. The picture stung, but it didn't hurt. It brought only clear, sharp focus. I locked the door and drove back toward Boston, watching my lake house shrink in the rearview mirror. That weekend, the family group chat was highly active with preparation. They discussed music playlists, compiled grocery lists, and finalized where everyone would sleep. I remained completely silent. Sunday night, Liam leaned against my kitchen counter. He watched as I checked the live feeds from the newly installed security cameras. "You are really going through with this," he noted. "It's already done," I replied. He smiled slowly, looking proud. "Then let them learn." I nodded, closing my laptop. Outside, the city noise continued, uncaring. Inside, I felt perfectly calm. I no longer needed to fight them directly. I only needed to wait. By late May, the chat became energized again. "We're all heading up to the lake house tomorrow," my sister wrote. "Who is bringing what?" Replies poured in instantly. Aunt Carol confirmed she was bringing wine. Father was packing his fishing rods. Mother promised her well-known potato salad. Emojis danced like digital confetti. I sat at my kitchen table, my laptop open, my coffee growing cold. I watched the scene unfold. My heart rate didn't even increase. I had already checked the security feeds twice that morning. The systems were running, sensors armed, and all locks were secured. I knew exactly what would happen. Liam glanced over from the couch. "Ready?" he asked. I gave a small, certain smile. I had never been more ready. The next morning was bright and routine. I worked remotely, answering emails while keeping the security feed propped up beside my main screen. Around noon, I noticed movement in the upper left corner of the video. A silver SUV pulled up the gravel drive, kicking up dust. My sister and her husband stepped out first, wearing sunglasses and carrying beach bags. Behind them followed my parents' sedan, and then a third vehicle carrying Aunt Carol and Uncle Dave. 4 cars total. Laughter spilled out as car doors slammed. Voices echoed across the yard. My sister jogged toward the front door, jangling her spare keys triumphantly. "Got it!" she yelled. I zoomed in on the camera feed. She tried the lock. It wouldn't turn. She frowned, trying again, twisting the key harder. Nothing. Her husband approached and tested his own key. Same result. I could almost sense their confusion through the screen. A moment of nervous whispering, the atmosphere quickly shifting from festive to frustrated. Then my sister's voice, now sharp, carried over. "Ariel must have messed with the lock." Father appeared next to her, his gray hair catching the sun. "Maybe she just lost the old keys," he suggested, trying to smooth things over. But his expression froze when he looked up and spotted the new security camera mounted above the door. They all followed his gaze. Mother shielded her eyes. Aunt Carol muttered something under her breath. My sister took a step back, planting her hands on her hips. "Is she seriously recording us?" My phone immediately buzzed. Mother was calling, then my sister, then her husband. I ignored every single ring. When the family chat started lighting up again, I opened it. Messages flooded in. My sister demanded I let them in, stating the situation wasn't funny. Mother asked how I could treat my own family this way. Father pointed out they had driven 6 hours. Aunt Carol called my actions absurd. I typed slowly, selecting every word with precision. "If you attempt to break that door, the alarm will activate. The police will respond. You will all be arrested for trespassing." I hit send. On the live feed, they paused simultaneously, pulling out their phones. I watched my message appear in their chat bubbles. Realization spread across their faces like a slow-moving sickness. Confusion, then shock, then a sudden look of fear. My sister dropped her phone, bending to retrieve it with visibly shaking hands. Mother pressed a hand to her chest. Father's jaw tightened. Aunt Carol whispered something that made my sister's husband recoil. Liam leaned over my shoulder. They got the message. The front yard and the feed dissolved into chaos. Wild gestures, overlapping accusations, the furious body language families use when they lose authority. I could imagine the sound, the excuses and self-justifications forming faster than logical thought. Then came the instant of silence I had been waiting for. Mother looked straight into the camera. I met her eyes through the pixelated lens. She mouthed a question I couldn't hear, but I knew what it was. How could you? For the first time, I felt no guilt, only clarity. After about 15 minutes of arguing among themselves, they began to retreat. Bags were dropped in frustration. Coolers were shoved roughly back into trunks. Doors slammed. One by one, the vehicles backed out, tires crunching the gravel until only dust and pine needles remained. I closed my laptop. Liam let out a long breath beside me. "That was perfect." I smiled. No screaming, no fighting, just the simple truth. The phone rang again that evening. It was Mother's number flashing on the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice sounded sharp and unsteady. "How could you do this, Ariel? To your own family." "I gave you a warning," I stated. My voice was calm and deliberate. "It is my private property. You cannot claim it just because you feel entitled." "You are being cruel," she countered. "No," I corrected her. "I am being unambiguous. And from now on, you will handle your own expenses, too. I am finished funding this family's comfort." There was silence, followed by a shaky, "You don't mean that." "I do." Every single word. I hung up the phone. That same night, I accessed my banking application. I canceled all the repeating transfers. The money I sent my parents, my sister's car insurance payments, and Aunt Carol's medical bills. One by one, they were terminated. Each cancellation felt like dropping a heavy chain. The next several days brought a storm of calls and messages. Initially, they expressed pure fury. "You are destroying this family." Then they tried guilt. "We only wanted to spend time together." Eventually, there were half-hearted apologies. "Maybe we went too far." I did not respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I drove back to the lake house the following week. The air smelled fresh, undisturbed. Inside, everything was precisely as I had left it, quiet, tidy, and mine. I opened the porch doors and allowed the breeze to move through the house. The water shimmered brightly under the late spring light. For 2 weeks, I lived exactly the way I had always wanted to. I spent mornings on the dock with coffee, afternoons reading, and evenings watching the sunset fade over the trees. No phone calls, no guilt. Every sound felt more vivid. The rustling pines, the low hum of the refrigerator, even my own breathing. Peace felt tangible, and I finally experienced it. One evening, while reviewing the security footage from that day, I paused the video on my sister's face. She was frozen between recognition and sheer disbelief. The instant she realized she had lost control, I neither smiled nor took pleasure in the sight. I just sat there, reflecting on the years that led up to that expression, the dismissive laughter, the endless assurances that you'll come around. This was the first time I hadn't come around. Liam visited that weekend. He stood next to me on the porch, hands in his pockets, gazing at the lake. "Do you think they will ever understand?" he asked. "Perhaps," I replied, "but it doesn't matter if they do." He nodded silently. "You look different." "I feel different." We watched the light disappear during sunset. The air cooled. For the first time in my entire life, the silence wasn't a burden. It felt earned. Summer passed uneventfully. My family did not attempt another visit. The calls slowed down, then stopped entirely. One evening, I deleted the group chat without ceremony, a simple silent swipe. Initially, it felt strange not to check for new messages, but soon the quiet became deeply comforting. My performance at work improved significantly. My focus was sharper than ever. Ms. Kennedy, my boss, commented on it. "You seem lighter," she said one morning. "Keep doing whatever you are doing." Liam and I spent weekends at the lake, just the two of us, enjoying coffee and slow mornings without interruptions. Sometimes I would catch myself looking at the camera feeds, not out of anxiety, but as a reminder that I had learned how to protect my own peace. A few months later, Mother sent me a text. "We would like to talk. Maybe we can try starting over." I thought about her message for a long time, then replied simply, "Not yet." For the first time, refusing didn't hurt. It felt like the truth. The people who had once drained my energy were no longer running my life. My life might not be loud, but every quiet second of it was mine. When I looked out over the lake that night, the surface perfectly reflected the sky. And for the first time, that was absolutely enough. A year later, everything looked changed. I was promoted to senior data analyst, and Liam and I were planning our wedding. My family had learned to manage without my financial assistance, and I had learned to live without needing their approval. When Mother called on my birthday, her voice was careful, softer. We spoke politely, like distant acquaintances, and that was sufficient. The lake house remains my sanctuary. The locks are changed, and the cameras continue their silent watch. Some might call this vigilance paranoia. I call it peace. I've realized one crucial thing: boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. Love does not mean sacrificing yourself to be exploited. It means safeguarding the part of you that no one else ever valued. If you have ever had to draw that line between duty and self-respect, share your story in the comments. You are not alone. And if you want to hear more stories like this, hit subscribe. The next one might remind you that saying no can save your